recently, Geraldo Rivera was on Huffington Post or HuffPost Live discussing rap and hip-hop music and what it's done to minorities in the country. Take a look.
Hip-hop has done more damage to black and brown people than racism in the last 10 years. When you find the youngster, a Puerto Rican from the South Bronx or a black kid from Harlem, who has succeeded in life other than being the 1/10 of 1% that make it in the music business, that's been a success in life, walking around with his pants around his ass and with visible tattoos, or it is this whole ethos. And I love Russell Simmons. He's a dear friend of mine. I admire his business acumen. At some point, those guys have to cop to the fact that by encouraging this distinctive culture that is removed from the mainstream, they have encouraged people to be so different from the mainstream that they can't participate other than, the racks in the garment center and those entry-level jobs. And I lament it. I really do. I think that it has been very destructive culturally.
And some of his best friends are rappers. Okay?
And there are rap moguls. But I think that he thinks Russell Simmons is one day going to cop to that, and he's going to apologize for rap culture. No, he's not. What are you talking about? Do you really know Russell Simmons? So I'm sure that you've had social interactions with him because you're both, powerful and wealthy at this point. But I can assure you he doesn't agree with you. So now Geraldo's a maddening guy. From time to time he'll say something slightly reasonable, and other times he'll say insane things like this. Now he says that blacks should be more part of the dominant culture. Exactly what he just said, right? What are you talking about? They are the dominant culture. I mean, tracing all the way back to Elvis through present day, the culture through black music and other art forms has, the entire American culture, the world culture has adapted to African Americans rather than the other way around.
Yeah.
What planet are you living on, Geraldo? You think we're still listening to Bing Crosby?
So it's interesting because a few weeks prior to this story breaking, Jay-Z had mentioned something about how rap and hip-hop music actually brought communities together, because all of a sudden you see people from all different types of backgrounds celebrating that type of music. And I think he made a good point there. But in both cases, with Geraldo and Jay-Z, I think that they were both wrong in some regards. Okay, so with Jay-Z, he's got to understand that, yes, there are people who appreciate that music, they love that music, and it helps them understand different communities. It helps them get out of their own bubbles. At least that's what happened with me. But then there are people out there, I think those who are predisposed to racism, who will use that type of music to isolate those communities or to talk down about those communities. And I think Geraldo is a perfect example of that. When Geraldo listens to rap or hip-hop music, he's not listening to messages, he's not listening to the stories that are told through the music, he's paying attention to the stereotypes, right? So he's paying attention to the sagging pants, the tattoos, which, by the way, he shouldn't be throwing stones when he's living in a glass house. He's got 2 tattoos, okay, so what now? One of which is visible. And so
I can see it.
It's really, oh, interesting.
Okay, well, good for him. I think he's past 70.
He's really hanging in there. Good for him. All right.
Are we not the fairest show in America?
Those pants look like they might be sagging just slightly.
The pants were sagging a little bit, and I saw visible tattoos, though.
So anyway, I think that, unfortunately, there are people who will use that kind of music as a way to look down on the community. But at the same time, I do think that for some people, it helps them understand, blacks and other minorities.
So, look, I don't want to shut down the conversation, so I don't like the idea of people just screaming, Geraldo's a racist, and let's be done with it, and let's banish him, and yada, yada. No. But I do want to, as part of that conversation, be smart and have a real dialogue about what makes sense and what doesn't. So if you had said this about another community, there would be a very, very strong reaction. I mean, look, so if you said, the Jews, they're a little too Jewish. They got to tone it down with a bagel and lox, right?
Yeah, they got to be more mainstream.
Yeah, and it, oh my God, the Orthodox with their funny hair and the tassels hanging off from their pants. What are they doing? All that stuff is visible. The yarmulkes they're putting on their heads, that's so visible. Why don't you adhere to the dominant culture? Hey, Jews, why don't you adhere to the dominant culture, right? That doesn't sound quite right? Because it isn't right. And so when you say it to blacks, it just doesn't make it any better. Now, if you're going to have a conversation about, hey, obviously there are issues in the African American community, socioeconomic conditions or issues. How do we address that in a smart way instead of saying, I blame hip hop, right? Well, great, that's a conversation I want to have.
Yeah, definitely. And unfortunately, it's a conversation that people like Geraldo have no interest in because they've bought into the stereotypes. He listens to rap music and all he thinks is thug culture. But there's way more to that genre of music than just thug culture. Is there stupid rap music out there that's just about money and hoes? Yes. But is there rap music out there that tells a story that's worth listening to? Absolutely. Even if you're not into that genre, just pay attention to the lyrics.
And how come these guys never make the same case about movies? Now, that's a huge part of our culture. You want to talk about thug culture? Goodfellas, Casino, Godfather, and the list goes on and on. Every Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, every Sylvester Stallone movie. Thug culture, okay, half of Al Pacino's movies. Thug culture, okay. I mean, we're in it, son. The entire culture is thug culture. We're Americans. So just don't say it's just black people and that's what's causing the problems, because that's an incredibly myopic way of looking at it.